Hi, I'm Adam and welcome back to First Man Photography, and today I'm going to share a very practical example of the one photography rule that actually matters. Before we get going today, this video is sponsored by Squarespace. If you need a domain name, a website or an online store, make your next move with Squarespace. If you've been here for a while, you'll know that the photography world is full of cliches. A classic when discussing the rules of composition is that the rules are made to be broken. Fine, cool, but if we avoid getting caught up with the word rule, we can just use them as guidelines. And the thing is, they just work. And without question, your photos can still be unique. But the technical aspects get far too much coverage, in my opinion, and the debate over which compositional rule is best is pointless. So today we're going to head to the Lake District to follow my one and only rule that I think matters in my photography, and that is to make it meaningful. And that's different for everyone, but by getting out and actually doing something, making or creating something, actually enjoying your photography, using it to say something or simply spend time with friends. Or like for me in this video, using it to push and challenge ourselves outside of the comfort zone in an attempt to capture an image that will feel special and actually mean something to us. So I've arrived in the Lake District and it is pretty much a beautiful day. The sun is coming in and out, but it's really quite warm. Personally, I've found the last couple of winters pretty difficult, and a bit of sunshine and hot weather is having a really positive effect on me. I've been suffering some back problems again recently, and I'm currently deeply unfit. So my first challenge, I suppose, for today is to hike up that hill there. And I'm up for it. I'm up for it because the conditions are so nice. I've been up there before and I think it could turn into an evening that's going to produce some really nice photography conditions. So it's definitely going to be worth the climb, although I'm not looking forward to it. What I am finding particularly interesting as well, if we spin around to that crag just there, I don't know if you can see, but there is a person halfway up that rock face. Deeply impressive, deep respect for that, because since I was, I don't know, about 13 years old, I have not been built like a climber, so I just cannot imagine being able to do that. Very impressive though. Now, I know bad backs are pretty common amongst landscape photographers. It does make climbing up these hills particularly difficult. One I find happens, and I've had a bad back for years, probably from years of getting battered around playing rugby, but it's taken its toll. So I have this cycle of back problems where it sort of flares up, it gets better, and as I start to get fit, it gets worse again, because I used to be very fit. That's kind of still my mindset, and I haven't quite come to the conclusion that I'm 41 years old and my body is not what it used to be. Oh, the second you put sort of 18 to 20 kilos of metal and glass on your back, it just becomes unbelievably difficult. Talking to a camera while you're climbing up a steep set of stairs doesn't help. I just feel I need to share with you because, like I've said on a couple of recent videos, these films don't come easy. I might think differently when I get to the top, because I'm confident today I'm going to be rewarded. Ah yes, that's it, I've made it to the top and I'm thrilled with the view. Absolutely beautiful, and I think the conditions are also really interesting. I'm an absolute sucker for blue toned images. At the moment, everywhere around me has that hazy blue colour that I just find super interesting, especially once you put the long lens on there and just get some of the shapes of those mountains and make something slightly more abstract, something slightly more subtle, peaceful, calming. As the light comes in and out the clouds, it all looks quite different as well. What will be particularly interesting is how that changes as the sun starts to go down. So as that blue light transitions into the yellows and the oranges and hopefully the pinks later on. I'm going to spend a few hours up here, I think, and make 2 or 3 images. Take my time and really try to formulate something memorable and something special that is going to mark this occasion for me. Right, I think I'm going to get something a little warmer on first though. Right, so I'm set up for a shot, and I'm actually really excited about this. And I would love it if you would just bear with me, because I can sense already that just even seeing these hazy conditions, some of you are thinking that's not going to work. That's not going to be an interesting image. And I want to tell you why it's going to be, why I think it's going to work, because it's just fascinating conditions. The shapes in the mountains and the difference in contrast as it kind of has a small gradient from the sort of more contrasty tops of the peaks into the more hazy valleys. That's producing interesting forms and shapes and mood and attitude, I suppose. And as the way the clouds are forming and the sun is coming in and out, the blue haze is contrasted with a much warmer band across the tops of the mountains in the distance there. And that's just creating a really interesting juxtaposition between those blue tones and those yellow tones. I think, having stood here and observed it for a little while, the perfect time to shoot with the light is that moment of half light, essentially when the sun is half behind the clouds and half out. And what that does is it creates a direct light from the half that's free of the cloud, and then a nice diffused light from the half of the sun that's behind the cloud. So it creates some really unique, advantageous, I suppose, lighting conditions for landscape photography. I love that little moment. It doesn't last for very long, so you have to capture it just right. It's actually quite difficult to focus, so I've manually focused. I'm set there, and then just lock it off. And I've focused on one of the more contrasty parts towards the bottom of the frame. And using this 7200, I'm in at 100mm at the moment. I'm at f8 to get the sharpest I possibly can out of this lens. I'm at ISO 100 to keep that image as clean as possible, especially with all this haze. I need to be careful of that because it could get noisy quite easily, I think. And then at the moment I'm at 160th of a second. As the light changes, because I'm in manual mode, all I'm doing is then rolling that shutter speed between about 160 and 320 to manage the light. And at the moment there's a streak of light coming through there, so I'm just going to capture that. And it's going to be one of those occasions, I think, where the sensible thing to do is just going to be sit and hold that composition for a while, and as the light changes, just keep shooting frame after frame after frame, not worrying about which is the best frame right now. I will do that later because I'm confident with the composition. I'm happy with the composition. I love these conditions. If you are skeptical, I hope when I show you this image in a second, you will see the beauty. See that beauty that I am feeling right now. That, I don't know, it's kind of ethereal, I guess, but I'm surrounded by that haze as well. I hope this image will connect with you like it has done with me. So I've discovered a fun new way to show you how windy it is, and I'm going to do that with the help of the drone. I'm going to turn it this way. Listen to that. Totally switched off though. So I've just about got the camera set up for another shot, but I'm just taking a minute to really enjoy the peace and the quiet and the warmth of that sun. It feels so good. But as you know, this video is sponsored by Squarespace. Now, Squarespace is just the best place for photographers to build their website because it's just so easy to do apart from anything, and it doesn't take up too much time. And if you're anything like me, time is very precious. They've also got superb customer service, so if you run into any trouble, they will help you out. So all you need to do is head over to squarespace.com and use one of their templates, and before you know it, once you've added some of your pictures and a little bit of your text, you will have a beautiful looking website, and it's just a great way to present your work, way better than social media. If you want to, you can then upgrade it to an online store to start selling things like prints. Another exciting feature they've added recently is a members area where you can send your audience to and host some exclusive content. And if you want to, you can charge a monthly subscription. And that's just as easy to do as anything else on the site. So go to squarespace.com to start your free trial today. And then if you like the website that you've created, use the offer code FIRSTMAN to get 10% off your first purchase. Right, so as you can see, I am set up again with the 70-200 on. This time I have a filter on, and I'm just using this ND Grad, which I don't normally use, but today I am, because I just want to get it right in one frame. But my subject, mainly, is that tree that you can see there. Now, previously, when I have walked past that tree, I've always been attracted to it, but I just couldn't get it into a composition that I enjoyed. And I think mostly it was because sometimes it was a bit earlier in the day, but also with where I'm stood, it always got lost in the mountains behind it. But because today of that hazy blue colour, it's providing a beautiful amount of separation between the tree and the background. I've just managed to find this position where it's working just right to get the top of the tree below the top of the mountain line, and then the lowest branch above the height of the ground, so sitting in that little sweet spot. And I think that's just adding that extra bit of interest and putting more detail or more emphasis onto the tree, because as the tree, when I got a bit lower, as the tree started to sort of breach the top of the mountains, I don't know, it spoiled the context a little bit, because I love the relationship between that tree and that background, just setting it off, because it's such a beautiful tree and such a beautiful location, and it's managed to survive a lot of the storms recently, which many other trees, like that one just up there, have not in this vicinity. Because of the shape of the hill that I'm stood on, it's providing a really soft gradient of light between the shadows and the highlights, so the foreground looks really good as well. I'm at about 18-90 millimeters, something like that. I'm at f8, 1/60th of a second, ISO 100, and 2-second timer, and then I just need to block the sun from the lens so I don't get any flare. Let's have a look at that. I mean, I think that's a fascinating image. You don't often see trees like that, this high up, on their own. A bit of a lone tree shot with beautiful, big Lake District mountains in the distance. But representing the fascinating relationship between the tree and its surroundings. Right, so I'm set up for what's probably going to be my final shot of the day, because as you can see, the sun behind me is starting to dip below that mountain, and in about 10 minutes that sun will be gone altogether. And I think for the composition that I am putting together here, that sun or that light on the land in front of me is absolutely essential, because as that warm evening sun is hitting these silver birches and the rock and the kind of still slightly wintry heather, it's just bringing them to life essentially in the frame. And I think it looks absolutely fantastic as my foreground, as I go for a very much more traditional type capture the view sort of image. So for that I have the 16-35 millimeter lens on, and I am about 28 millimeters. I've zoomed in a little bit, because if you go with a very, very wide angle, the distant features become very small in your frame. In this case, the lake and those distant mountains, which are actually some of the biggest in the Lake District. So to make them really small in the image seems a bit silly. So I've zoomed in a bit just to make those a little more prominent in the frame, using some of the trees and the grasses and the rock in the foreground up to that sort of shore area before the lake, and then into that hazy blue. But as the sun is coming down, it's starting to warm up more and more and more, and I think that's going to be really nice. And then I've still got some blue sky above it with some interesting clouds. That's all in the frame. I just would love those mountains in the distance, those hazy mountains, to go a bit warmer, because we've had the blue shots, we've had those, and want that sunset warm feel now to finish this day off. That kind of inspiring feeling that I've got right now It's been that kind of day where things have gone quite nicely. It's been warm, it's been nice to be out, it's felt relaxing, and the whole thing's inspiring. So to finish it off with that kind of sunset warm image is exactly what I want to capture the feeling, capture the moment, and hopefully translate it to you, not just through this video, but through the photograph as well. That's always what, well, not always, but usually what I'm aiming to do with my photography is sort of, like I've been saying recently, say something, entertain or delight or evoke an emotion in the viewer that makes them somewhat feel exactly what I'm feeling now, because it's infectious, it's satisfying, and it builds the well-being. So here is the photograph, and although I'm extremely happy with this, it's not really the image that matters. It's what it represents. It's the challenge and the experience of making it that's given me a much needed sense of fulfillment. And that's resulted in a photograph that for me has a deep sense of meaning. When I look at it now, it reminds me of lying on a rock to rest my back, being out in the landscape, being creative, and hopefully putting something positive out into the world. And to me, I believe for many of us, that is second nature.